Go live to the Prime Minister.
Change in Energy, and I have written to the Executive Secretary of the United Frameworks Convention on Climate Change, Ms Patricia Espinosa, to convey Australia's enhanced 2030 nationally determined contribution under the Paris Agreement. This is done. We announced last December what our policy framework would be. At that time, we released the most comprehensive modelling of any policy by any opposition since Federation. What we didn't do was set a target and then work out how to get there. What we did was work out what good policy looked like, and it happened to come out with a 43% target by 2030. What business has been crying out for is investment certainty, the certainty that they need to invest over a longer time frame than the political cycle of 3 years, let alone the cycle that dominated the former government's thinking, the 24-hour media cycle. When we met with Rio Tinto yesterday, including the CEO, Kelly Parker, she was talking about a 20-year investment cycle for Rio there in Gladstone. We went to the alumina refinery. It's looking at being powered by renewables with some backup, but powered by renewables, and then looking at green hydrogen and what it can do to lower their emissions right down, but also to lower their costs. The thing with climate action is that it's all about the short-term capital investment that's required, but then you get the long-term benefit because the cheaper, cleaner energy flows well into the future. And that's what sets Australia up for a prosperous future. A future powered by cleaner, cheaper energy. A future in which we make more things here. A future in which we participate in the global effort to deal with the challenge of climate change, but also seize the opportunity that is there from acting on climate change. When I've spoken with international leaders in the last few weeks, they have all welcomed Australia's change position. Our change position of 43 up by 17 to 15 from the 26 to 28% target that has remained there since Tony Abbott determined it in 2015. Scott Morrison went to the Glasgow conference last year and gave an empty speech to an empty room with no change position. We saw a pamphlet released by the former government rather than a policy framework. And we continued to see arguments even during the election campaign about the science of climate change, let alone the need to act. What today demonstrated with the presence of the Australian Industry Group, the Business Council of Australia, the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Clean Energy Council, the Australian Conservation Foundation, the Australian Council of Trade Unions, and others who couldn't make it because the chair and heads of the NFF are overseas, but they support the policy as well, is an opportunity that Australia has to end the climate wars, an opportunity to reach for solutions, not arguments, an opportunity to provide the certainty going forward so that we get that investment. We get the 604,000 new jobs created, 5 out of every 6 in regional Australia. We get the $52 billion of private sector investment. We get the energy market transformed, which we can see the result at the moment of the delay and the inaction of the former government over almost a decade. We have that opportunity to move forward. We will introduce legislation when the Parliament sits in July. We don't need the legislation to be clear. So it'll be up to the Parliament, but I hope that what happens is that people from across the spectrum have a look at not just the government's position that we have a clear mandate for, but have a look as well at the backing that is there for our position and seize this opportunity to head Australia in the right direction. This is economic reform, it's substantial, but it will also have an environmental benefit